We just released our latest short, Transfigure, and it seemed like people really enjoyed the making of last time, so I wanted to do that again. There's a lot to talk about here, but I'll try to make it succinct. We knew we would have to take a step back again and tell a very short story that we could pull off in our home with just Hannah and I, thanks to COVID and winter. I see this film as something of a cross-pollination between behind the frame and home movies. Consider this the concluding chapter of the Hannah being killed by images trilogy. Without the bit of effect experience that home movies and some other short films we had made provided me, I probably wouldn't have tried to make Transfigured at all, because there are around 5 main things that the film really needed to work VFX-wise, and they're things that I didn't necessarily have a lot of experience with before. Firstly, all but 2 shots of the computer screen were added in post. I added these little sticky note markers to help track in the screen recording. The reason we did this is it helped the screen pop and allowed me to not have to worry about exposing around the screen, because that was something that we did when we shot home movies. And also we could choose what was being shown on the screen in post if we wanted to change it or something. The second bit of effects was for the blush in the eyes. Like the screen, I put small sticky note trackers on Hannah's face to help track the blush and the eye effects onto her. Hannah's pupils actually ended up working better as trackers for most of the shots. I ended up having to remove the trackers needlessly from her face for several shots, which was a little disappointing, so that was a lesson learned. All of the effects are actually really simple. For the later shots, I photoshopped some more convincing looking eyes and then added those into her face, just had them track in, and animated a mask. With all these things happening to Hannah's face that aren't actually there, the shot without the effects is hilarious, and it was equally hilarious to shoot the scene. The mouth was a lot more difficult. I did the same thing as the eyes by photoshopping her mouth to get a more convincing looking removed mouth, and then I would track that onto Hannah's mouth in the shot. My problem was then that when I tried to track the movement of Hannah's mouth using Mocha, the stretching of it and how it deformed, it just didn't really look right, because that's not how you should be doing it. This was I was hoping this would just work, and it didn't work. So ultimately I used what I learned with home movies with the puppet tool to hand animate it and stretch a bunch of points on the mouth to her actual mouth as it moved to try to get that proper deformation. The waist shot was a mix of practical and effects in post. What we did is my mother helped out here. She came in behind Hannah and she pulled on her shirt. Using a clean plate, I erased her from the shot. I added a liquefy effect to push her waist in even further, just to help sell the effect a little better. Action. I knew that the decapitation effects at the end of the film had to look decent for the whole film to sell, because it's such an important moment. The first thing we did is Hannah just painted some blood on to the neck that would be a good base, a practical base for the visual effects. I got some help from a friend who knows visual effects better than I do, especially After Effects, and he showed me how I could use the roto brush, which means I would paint around that neck area where the makeup stops, so that's kind of like a hard line that it can detect, and then you help it a little bit to automatically track that area and isolate it so that I could remove her head at the neck. I also took this decapitated head that we used in Seagrass, actually, and I added some more fake blood to the stump, and I shot it where Hannah was standing to try to get some kind of a basis for the flesh under the neck. It would have been much better if we had simulated the light properly to move across it as she falls, but since that didn't end up working out how we filmed it, I tried to make the most of the 2D image of the stump. It still looks a little strange, but one thing that I tried to do to really help it was animate the blood dripping down. I went in with the liquefy tool and I dragged down on the blood to make it look like it was coming down a little bit. And then later on, I added some drips and stuff just to help sell it a little bit. For Hannah's headless shot at the end of the film, I captured a clean plate of the driveway. Then we shot Hannah. She is awesome for having done that because it was freezing and she had no coat on. I came in with what little we had left of our fake blood and I just dumped it down. And the plan was for her neck to cover up the source of that blood. And then we would stitch it all together. And that worked, But the blood, when I poured it, it was too thick. So there was this moment where I thought we were kind of screwed because it was just so thick and it didn't look realistic at all. But Hannah suggested pouring water onto it and to add some flow, and that ended up saving the shot. I cut out her body. I then used a clean plate to cover myself up where I'm pouring the water onto the blood, and her neck hid the area where the blood started to spew out, so that was meant to make it all work together. The score was once again done by Dennis Nato, who did a great job again. There's a link in the description to his work, and please go check it out. He's worked on a lot of other shorts. He's got some great stuff. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was interesting. Happy New Year's to everyone. Thank God 2020 is past us. I am grateful, though, at least, that this quarantine period has given Hannah and I the time to work on some films together. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope you've enjoyed watching them.